Welcome to Radio Asheville's ongoing public service programming for Asheville and Buncombe County. Today's forum is for the North Carolina District Court, seat 3 of District 40. The candidates for this seat are James Mills and Ben Scales, and our moderator for this forum is local attorney Michael Weimer. The primary election coming up on March 3rd is an important primary election. So get out there and place your vote for one of these great candidates.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mike Weimer, and I am an attorney in Asheville, North Carolina, and I'm the moderator for this forum between two judicial candidates for District Judge Seat 3 in Buncombe County. We have James Mills and Ben Scales. James, if you wouldn't mind, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about why you want to be a district judge.
Thank you. My name is James Mills. I grew up in the eastern part of the state. I worked in cotton and tobacco, was lucky enough, being raised by two school teachers, to believe in a hard work ethic and education. I went to Chapel Hill, then Wake Forest, and then I came to Asheville 25 years ago, where I have lived, worked every day in our district courts. I want to be a district court judge because it is the place in our court system that touches the most lives by far. It is where the community is impacted. The vast majority of people who deal with our court system go through the district court. My parents taught me, being the teachers they were, that to give back to the community is the most important part of our lives, however that may be. Now, I don't go on Facebook and whatnot. I don't even have a personal account. So this is awkward for me. I've never been one to promote myself. So this entire experience of running and having to do that is unusual. But what we need to know is what a district court judge does. It's everything from involuntary commitments, adoptions, all of family court, custody, support, and then, of course, criminal court. All misdemeanors, felonies have come through the district court. It is a broad array of how the court system interacts with the community. My experience every day for 25 years, and the fact that my colleagues they ask me, and they trust me to take this position. And that's why I'm doing this. I think I can use my experience to give back to the community that's given me so much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ben, your turn to tell us a little bit about yourself and why you want to be a district court judge in Buncombe County.
Sure. Good afternoon. My name is Ben Scales, and I practiced law for 35 years. I have an engineering degree from Georgia Tech, and I was editor of the Law Review at the Cumberland School of Law, where I graduated in the top 15% of my class. I clerked for two federal judges, first one being in Washington, D.C., and the second one in the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands, a U.S. possession. My wife, Kate, and I have lived here in Asheville for 25 years and raised three children here. I've worked in all levels of the Buncombe County court system. In addition to being retained and court appointed, I've provided thousands of hours of pro bono service, representing hundreds of survivors of domestic violence, as well as journalists, activists, veterans, union members, all seeking to exercise their First Amendment rights. I'm running for district court judge to bring my extensive personal and professional experience, both inside the courtroom and outside the courtroom, to be a kind, calming, knowledgeable, and compassionate presence into what otherwise can be the worst day in people's lives.
Thank you for that. Ben, I know that lawyers know what district court judges do, but outside of the lawyers and people who have brushed up against the judicial system, a lot of people don't know what the duties of a district court judge are. Would you take some time and elaborate on that?
Well, I can't add a whole lot to what my colleague, Mr. Mills, just said. He pretty much summed it up. It is the first point of contact for most people into the court system. Um, you, it's where misdemeanors are handled, traffic, things like that. Felony first appearances, you go into district court. All levels of family, divorce, custody, child support, equitable distribution, involuntary commitment, domestic violence protection. All of those things are handled in the district court. It's a very broad jurisdiction. It also handles civil cases up to $25,000. So there are occasionally jury trials.
And does it also handle appeals from the small claims court?
It does. It does.
Okay.
That's how some of those civil cases get into district court.
So there might be, for example, landlord-tenant disputes that a district judge would have to rule upon at some point.
Absolutely.
Okay. So James, moving to a different topic, I know that there have been a lot of discussion about the time it takes for a case to get through any court system, but especially the Buncombe County District Court, that things are fairly slow. Do you have a view on that? And if you do you have any suggestions for how judicial efficiency might be improved?
Yes, there are, since COVID-19, there has been a massive backlog. Now, the courts are working through that statewide. It did not help that 2 Julys ago, so a year and a half ago, we implemented the new statewide e-courts system. That slowed things down dramatically. Now we're working through that and everybody's getting more accustomed to that, but it has clogged the dockets. To break your question into two parts, you have the criminal courts. For misdemeanors, you're looking at going through an admin court or a first appearance court and then getting into the system. A lot of that relies on not only the defendant, but also on the DA. Both sides, if you will, have a right to be heard. The DA needs to contact their victims to prepare their case, as does the defendant. Sometimes that takes a few months. Why cases go more than 9 months to a year, though there are exceptions, should be the exception. Now, in civil court, specifically family court, those cases can be drawn out too long, in my opinion. That is because of you only have 3 judges doing it in the family court arena, and the dockets are massive. The family court deals with so many separate issues that you can have motion after motion after motion, and everybody is entitled to be heard. That is a good part of our system and our state, and especially our district courts. Sometimes things just take a 2 or 3 or 4 day trial, even though there are 50 other cases waiting. People deserve to be heard. And unfortunately, especially in the civil courts, it can be several months to get into court. My first suggestion for the criminal courts that a judge could do, we can only deal with what is in front of us. And a district court judge does not set a calendar. The DA's office sets the calendar, but when it is on the calendar in front of the court, then the judge has control of that calendar. And you hold both parties responsible to be prepared. If there needs to be a continuance, then it needs to be a good reason. How are we moving this case along? Are all parties protected? In civil court, the biggest issue I've seen is that, and I've been a part of it, I would rather have a 4-day custody trial than 8 half days scattered over 6 months. And unfortunately, it seems like we have developed a practice where we want to get as much heard as we can for as many people as we can, but it ends up breaking up trials, which only extends the life of the case. I would propose not breaking up the cases and having more issues heard at one time. I think over a few months, that will start to clear the backlog. Those are my suggestions.
Okay, thank you. Ben, you heard a lot of what James had to say. Do you have a view on efficiency and any suggestions to improve the efficiency in the district courts?
I like a lot of what James said. He's spot on about the continuances. One thing I would add is that sometimes our district courts get bogged down with things like roll call. I think that roll call is often one of the biggest wastes of time that we have in district court, especially in criminal court. It has everybody sitting around waiting for a list of names to be called out. Sometimes people are there, sometimes they're not there. Sometimes they get called and failed. Sometimes they get a warrant issued for their arrest. And then sometimes those people show up and the warrant gets recalled, and all of that process is for naught. What I would like to see is where court starts with the parties that are there ready to handle their cases, which can happen. The first thing that happens is the defendants with attorneys, for example, can have their cases resolved, and a lot of times those cases are continued. Then you can work through the people that are there. At the end of the day, if people haven't showed up, that's when you issue the warrants, and that's when you issue the calls and fails. I mean, that's just one little area, but I think if people understood that their case will likely get heard if they're there, I think it would help speed things along.
Okay, so following up with you,
Sure.
Ben, I know that there are some issues from time to time with regard to pro se litigants.
Yes.
Litigants, for the people who are watching who can't afford an attorney or haven't found an attorney and have to represent themselves. How would you propose dealing with that if you are in fact elected to the district court bench?
Well, it's a tough thing for a judge because a judge can't give legal advice. Mm-hmm. However, I think a pro se litigant has to be taken, that you have to level the playing field the best you can. And a pro se party should not be disadvantaged by the fact that they don't, just purely by the fact that they don't have an attorney. So I believe that judges have a responsibility to look out for attorneys, for example, taking advantage of a party that's not represented. I will say this: I've noticed about the Buncombe County Bar that attorneys will often volunteer to step up and give advice. Minor things usually, but it can certainly speed things up. And I'm very proud to be a member of the Buncombe County Bar for that reason. That justice comes first in the minds of the people that practice in this bar, and I'm like I said, I'm proud to be among that group.
Yes, the bar has a great reputation statewide for exactly that. James, same issue for you with regard to pro se litigants. If you have a view as to not only how to handle that from the bench, but how a pro se litigant might be helped so that they don't become the inefficiency of the system.
Okay. In criminal courts, and again, Mr. Scales is correct that a judge cannot legally give advice, the same as a clerk cannot give legal advice. In the criminal courts, they must be advised that they have the right to counsel if they so qualify. I take a broad view as to what those qualifications should be. We generally want people in criminal courts to have attorneys. It makes more sense not only for the efficiency of the system, but also for the matters in front of them. If their license is impacted, they may not know how to fix it. For the long-term health of the community, help from an attorney can fix their license, and we don't see them back every 2 months. So we would want to advise them not only of their right to have an attorney, but that it's really in their best interests. And the Buncombe County Bar is good about stepping up when they see somebody who's struggling and just offering a little bit of off-the-cuff advice. Hey, say this. Hey, man, do this. Look into that. Now, in civil court, especially family court, it's a different ballgame, because that's when you have issues of custody, divorce, equitable distribution, splitting up retirements, child support. An attorney is preferable, but there's no constitutional right to an attorney in civil cases. I have found that dealing with attorneys makes things go faster and better for the parties. But some people either can't afford an attorney or just want to represent themselves. They are entitled to do that. A judge has to hold everybody to the same standard of law regarding the rules of civil procedure, the rules of evidence. But a judge does have the responsibility to make sure that the court runs in a lawful legal manner, and specifically that everybody, pro se or not, is treated with respect and dignity. Many pro se people who represent themselves, they do just fine. It's awkward, but they work through it. They do their Google research, and things are very manageable. It might take a little longer, but that's okay. You get to the right conclusion. Some of the problems with some pro se litigants is called paper abuse. I have seen it far too often. It's the filing of what amount to frivolous motions. I saw a case one time where it was just a regular run-of-the-mill divorce case, and there was a motion to dismiss based on antecedent state law, states and trust law. It had no basis. It was just something off of an AI Google thing. It made no sense. But of course, it took time. People had to deal with it. Other than those types of misapplications of the court system, misuse of the power of filing a document, I think pro se individuals have a right to be there, a right to represent themselves, and a right to be heard, and a right to be treated fairly. It is up to the judge to apply the law, and the fact that a person does or does not have an attorney doesn't change the law. And that is incumbent upon the judge in following the law to look at the facts presented. Whether a lawyer presents them or not, the facts don't change.
Okay. Ben, most of our voters are not really going to know how your type of practice and experience would fit with the specific requirements of what a district judge does. Although, as we've heard, that's obviously very broad. So let me ask a little bit of a difficult question.
Okay.
Are there any cases that a district judge routinely handles where you feel like you either don't have that experience or you have a dearth of experience? And part two would be, how would you shore that up? Because obviously there are lots of private practitioners that haven't done a lot of things that judges are required to do even in those first few months on the bench.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Well, kind of to talk about my process with that. like I said, I've been practicing for 35 years, and I have done a whole lot of different things in those 35 years. And each time I entered into a new area of practice, I entered into it without knowing a great deal about that. But I've developed expertise in every area that I've gotten into, ranging from federal criminal defense to patent law and domestic violence law and entertainment law. And one of the things I haven't done is I haven't defended a involuntary commitment case. I have been working with families to try to get a family member involuntarily committed, but I have not been representing someone who has done that. I have worked with troubled teens in the schools. Was a big brother. I am a big brother, excuse me, through the Big Brothers program. Young man's 20 now, but we're still very close with his family. And he had some issues that landed him in juvenile court. And so I have experience there, but I don't have as much experience in juvenile court as I wish I had. So these are areas that one of the good things about the way this election is going to work out is that come March 3, we're going to know exactly who's going to be sitting in that seat. And that person will have about 8 months or 9 months to both wrap up their practice and get up to speed on any areas of law in which they're not perfectly comfortable. I think both of us are very comfortable in the criminal defense, and I think that Mr. Mills has done quite a bit in family law as well. And I look forward, if I'm elected, to getting up to speed on whatever areas that I haven't done enough of.
Okay, James, your turn. And if there's anything that objectively you feel like you don't have the experience at this point, do you have kind of a paradigm for how you might prepare for that case you may see that you haven't yet seen in 20-something years of practice?
Thank you. I've only done a couple of adoptions over the years, and though they were happy afternoons, it is a process and it is a great scene. We had one where there was even a cake and some ice cream because it's a happy time. I've only done maybe 2 or 3 in 25 years. I've only been involved in maybe 2 what are called TPRs, termination of parental rights. Now, those are usually multiple day hearings. There are multiple parties involved, usually multiple lawyers. There are a lot of facts that the judge must discern and that the judge will hear before you terminate a person's parental rights. That is something I hold dear. And I think the law is clear that the issues must be extreme. They must be detailed. I do not have enough work in that area specifically. And that is something that a district court judge does. It's one of the things a district court judge does. I have worked in juvenile court. I've also done DSS work. DSS work is different from juvenile court. Juvenile court is its own special set of laws, rules, time frame. DSS court, though, you're dealing with multiple lawyers. There's multiple tables in the room because there's multiple parties involved. They are time consuming, important, but time consuming, because ultimately what you want to do is reunify children and parents, but there's so many different areas that are touched, from substance abuse to work eligibility. I've done enough to not be a stranger to it. I'd like to beef that up. Criminal work, I've done everything in district court imaginable and also superior court. The one thing in family law that I need more work on is the fact that, especially when you see longer term marriages, usually there are tax implications specifically for distributing the house or distributing the retirement programs. So if both parties have retirement plans, they get split up. There may be tax ramifications for that. All of that has to be taken into account before an order can be done. You think you might be doing what appears equal on the surface. And then come tax time, one party was hit and hit hard. Well, then that's not fair. That's not equal. I think I need to bone up my research into how more of the depth and detail into family court issues, specifically like the distribution of assets.
Okay. Well, let me continue with you, James, and sort of a corollary issue here. Every time we do one of these, we hear a lot about how there just aren't enough resources, that the judiciary system gets about 5% of the North Carolina budget. It's not nearly enough. They need more DAs. They need more district court judges. Would you envision that as you're dealing with some of these issues with which you're not intimately familiar, that you would have to do your own research? Or do you think you could rely completely on the presentation by the attorneys before you to give you that information that you need to make that decision?
I would absolutely do my own research in addition to what is being presented by the litigants, be they attorneys or, as we talked about earlier, if they're pro se parties. Everybody deserves to be heard. They will be heard. That doesn't necessarily mean they are correct any more than a judge is correct just because they are a judge. I was brought up from a child to do my own research, to work hard, to study hard, to do my best to get it right. And that is something that, as a judge, I feel it is an incumbent and important to a judge to trust but verify, to do the research, use Lexis, use Westlaw, read the briefs. That's how you come to learn the law, to know the law, and to apply the law. As far as the resources of the court system, you're correct. There are simply not enough. Could we always use more? Sure. In every facet of the court system, absolutely. Buncombe County, though, we're lucky we do have more resources than some of the counties around us, and that's because of some certain local funding. And then you've got a bunch of people who work hard. I'm routinely at my office 60 hours a week. Staying 5 o'clock is just a number to me. So it is incumbent upon a judge to take our oath, the oath we took as a lawyer, which is to research the situation. I think that's what every good judge should do.
Ben, a related question, but I want to add something to it. I know that artificial intelligence is overtaking the world by storm, and we are not immune to it as lawyers. And I know we've all seen pleadings or motions that get filed that appear to be written by AI and are not correct. Do you have a view about whether that's going to become a more difficult problem? And if so, how would you combat it if you were elected to the district bench?
Well, yes. So as I mentioned earlier, I was an editor on the Law Review, and I was a judicial law clerk at the beginning of my career as an attorney. And in those roles, legal research and writing was what the job was. And so I have full faith that I know how to research, I know how to write, I know how to find the right answer. I would look forward to working with the attorneys, but I would not take what they say as the law. I would want to make sure, as Mr. Mills said, to verify the positions that they put out. I practice in federal court quite a bit as well, and the federal judges have required a certification on everything that gets filed that says that AI has not been used except as it's built into the legal research platforms. And I have also, and I'm sure Mr. Mills has as well, had clients who have done their own research on Google or whatever and come up and said, well, this is what the case is. And you have to kind of say, no, that's not what the case is. I do foresee the problem getting worse because right now, when AI makes a mistake, it's usually a pretty obvious one. What concerns me is when AI gets better so that their mistakes are less obvious. They're mistakes nonetheless, but they're not ones that jump off the page like the Fourth Amendment doesn't apply in this situation or something like that. I think that we have to use whatever tools we can, but we have to treat them as tools and not as the answer, because the answer has to be what the law says, what is written in the statutes, what is written in the opinions, how the judges have interpreted the laws, and how we are to follow the law, because that's at bottom what we do as judges is follow the law.
Ben, let me stick with you. It's my understanding that the primary is March the 3rd, but that there's not a Republican opponent for the general. Is that accurate?
That is.
Okay, so what a lot of voters may not realize is that this primary really is the election for the judge, and it's a down ballot position in a non-presidential election year. What would you say to people about how important it is to get out and vote in the primary on March the 3rd or the early voting?
Well, I say that there's only two real chances for the citizenry to have their voice heard by the government. One is voting, and the two is jury service. And if you want your voice heard, then your first responsibility as a citizen is to vote. You mentioned it being a down ballot race. On many of the ballots in Buncombe County, there are only 4 races. There's the U.S. Senate race. There's the Congress race, and then then there's the Court of Appeals race. And then there's the district judge race and the district attorney race. Some people are picking a county commissioner. Some people are picking city council. But it's a very short ballot, which means that the job of the voter, first of all, and I'm sure James has noticed this as well, the voters aren't taking very long in the ballot box. They're able to do their research and understand who they're going to vote for before they get to the polls. And once they get in there, the lines aren't very long and the ballot's not very long either. And they're able to get their job done. But I think it's really important for the public has a say in who is the judge, which is not the case in the federal system. And they have a much bigger say in the district court than they do in the Court of Appeals, for example. So, because it's a smaller pool of voters that are making this choice. And as James said, it is the court that has the most influence, has the most contact with the general public. So I think it's crucial for citizens to look at these races and decide who they want making these decisions for their life.
Okay, thank you. James, is this your first campaign?
Yes, sir.
First, okay. And what would you like to say to the voters, not only about how important it is for them to show up, because this is one way their voice can be heard, but also about the path that you've taken and what this has been like, running for judge.
I'll break that down into two parts. First, to my fellow citizens, I live here too. This is my home. And so often we see on TV the chaos that is going on. I would remind my friends, my neighbors, that we live here and all politics is local. So many people are disenchanted because they watch the evening news. But this judge race, same as for people who live in the city, the city council race, the mayor's race, senator, court of appeals, congressional district 11, the judge's race and the DA's race, those are the ones that are here in this town, in this county. They are the ones that are most likely to impact my neighbors on a daily basis. If people don't want to vote for in a national election for whatever reason, okay, I can see where in their mind they can have a disconnect. But district court judge and DA are right here at home. If you want to be heard, then these are the two races to do that. Because Mr. Scales and I, we both live here. This is our home too. Now, as far as the second part of your question, this has been an interesting experience. I thought a great deal for a long time, and some of my colleagues asked me. They came to me several months ago when we heard that the seat would come open. They asked me if I would close my practice and pursue this judgeship. And I thought long and hard and talked to my loved ones about it. And the trust and honor that my colleagues would put into me is something that, as a lawyer and as a professional, it meant so much. And so I decided to do this. What I have found is I'm not very polished, although I've been a trial lawyer for 25 years. But what's really struck me the most is I was not raised to promote myself. I will talk about my client for hours and hours and hours. But it's harder for me. That's not how I was raised. We were raised to be more reserved. So it has been a different experience having to say, I have done this and I have done that. It's uncomfortable for me. I would much rather say, look at what my client has done than talk about what I have done. So that has made this campaign interesting, to say the least.
Well, I'm going to ask you a question that is not intended to be too probing, but it's one that I have often wondered about, and that is, how would you be able to maintain judicial objectivity and divorce yourself from personal feelings and preferences and maybe even political ones if you were elected to the bench?
Okay. For me, that boils down to the fact that I took an oath. I took an oath as a lawyer. I have represented people that I didn't like them. I didn't like their views. But I took an oath to represent them with zealous advocacy and to apply and follow the law. The same thing with the judge. In my view, when a judge takes that oath to be fair, to be neutral, to apply the law to everybody without regard to skin color or pronouns or tattoos or hair color or who you love, none of that matters to me personally, and it sure doesn't matter in the law. The law is blind. So for me, it boils down to something that my father and my grandfather taught me, neither one of whom were lawyers, by the way. They said, when you give your word, then that is who you are. To put your hand on a Bible and take an oath, that means something to me. And I'm not trying to sound self-righteous, but that's how I was raised. When you give your word, that is everything. That is who you are. To be a judge means to apply the law fairly and impartially. That is the job. I know I can do that because I've done that in my practice. So it would not be a difficult transition for me. You look at the law and you apply the law, irregardless of who it applies to or how it applies to.
Ben, how about you? I know that's the tough question. I'm not sure how I would answer it, but how is it that with all this experience that you have and all the causes that you fought for, you would be able to divorce yourself from that and remain completely objective when you're deciding a case between two litigants or a criminal case between the state and a defendant?
Well, I think that in all the cases that I've taken, I have advocated for my clients' positions, but I've always done it with an eye toward a lawyer's duty of candor to the tribunal. The lawyer is supposed to zealously advocate for their client, but their fundamental duty is to justice itself. And so I don't know that it would be that big a difference. I mean, I'm agreeing with everything I'm hearing from Mr. Mills in this regard, that that when you're on the bench, I mean, from the time I was clerking for judges, I watched how they may have personal opinions about lawyers and the advocacy that they were presenting. They may have personal opinions about the parties or the issues that were before them, but they were able to clear the decks and move that stuff to the side and focus on the task at hand, which is following the law. And as you probably alluded to, this isn't my first run for office. I've run for district attorney, and I ran for Senate. District attorney has a policy-making role in determining the prosecutorial discretion of the office and how resources are allocated and things like that. The Senate position I was seeking writes the law. And this one is completely different because the role here is not to make the law, but to follow the law. And after the last election, which was 6 years ago that I lost, my wife told me no more. Then she was talking to some friends, and they told her that there may be a judge seat open, because she had told me before that if you wanted to run for judge, I'd be behind it 100%. And so she mentioned it to me that maybe I could do this. And so I started talking to people in the community about whether they would support me and whether they thought I would be a good judge. And I asked them whether they thought that I could do what you're talking about. Do you think I would be a good judge? Would I be fair? Would I be impartial? Would I be biased? Would I be someone who brought preconceived notions to their judicial philosophy? And everyone I spoke with, from all the community leaders that I work with, the people at my church, the doctors, other lawyers that I work with, they all said, Ben, do this. You would be a great judge because you're a thoughtful, kind, compassionate person who looks at the law with reverence. And it's not a role where your personal opinions matter at all. It's a role where your conscience matters, where your temperament matters, where your values matter. And they all told me, Ben, you have the temperament and the values for this role. You should do it.
Thank you. James, I'll kind of start with you with regard to the wrap up. We've covered a lot of ground, but maybe there's something in your background that you would like to get out that I didn't really ask you about. And so why don't you take a minute or two to kind of sum up for the people who are going to vote in this primary, things that we haven't talked about and why you think you're the best candidate for this position.
This race, you've got two qualified candidates, no doubt. And in this race, when people do their research, they will see that the district court does apply to them. Whether it's their child, their grandchild, their freedom, their neighbor, their best friend. If they could imagine that it applied to them, then they would want to know that there's somebody who has been there in those courts every day, who is trusted by the judiciary, who is trusted by his colleagues. When your house is on fire, you call a professional firefighter. And when it's you, when it's your children, your freedom, your money, your property, when it's serious, then you want somebody who has handled that. I don't think we've talked today enough about how Buncombe County does have limited resources, but how we use them well regarding treatment programs, diversionary programs, and how judges can be and are instrumental in using all of the resources and programs available for the betterment not only of the person, but of the community. We've got the Adult Drug Treatment Court, we've got Aspire Court, we've got several different types of formal and informal deferred prosecution programs. Judges can be instrumental in knowing how to use those, and they are all different, but knowing how to use those for people that come in front of us. Those are programs that not only help get a person's license back, but help people get into treatment, help them get clean, help to get their kids back, help them eliminate or prevent or then eliminate any criminal record, help them get jobs. That is something that I wish we had talked about a little more. Again, we've gone over a lot though. I know how to use all of those. As far as anything else about me, I've been here every day for 25 years. I'll die in Buncombe County. This is my home. I think we all want clean air, clean water, good schools. From a district court judge's perspective, you want somebody who knows the law, works hard about it, and wants to give opportunities to the people in front of us. That is what I am capable of, have the knowledge to do, and have done. Thank you.
Ben, I'll give you, I think, the last word on this, and why don't you cover anything that maybe we haven't had a chance to go over, and then tell us all why you think you would be the best candidate for this district court position.
All right. Well, I want to start off by saying that we do have, Buncombe County is very lucky that there are two qualified candidates running for this job, and I know, speaking for myself, I won't feel that the county is worse off if Mr. Mills is elected judge. The things that I haven't talked about are the level of community involvement that I've had here in Buncombe County. I have worked professionally in the courthouse every day. But in addition to that, I've served as president and treasurer of the Preservation Society of Buncombe County. I was the PTO president when my kids were in school. I have 3 kids, by the way. They're all adults now. My oldest is a prosecutor now. He graduated from Wake Law, just like Mr. Mills, and is a prosecutor in Catawba County. My middle child is a elementary school teacher at Isaac Dixon Elementary, where she went, and she is where I was the PTO president and where I built the playground. My youngest child is at Warren Wilson College. My wife and I have been married. We will have been married 29 years on Election Day. And I was senior warden at Grace Episcopal Church. I helped found the Stop the Violence Coalition with Reverend Keith Ogden. I was the precinct chair at the Democratic precinct chair for my precinct for up until the time I left that role to run for this position. I volunteered regularly at the schools, mentoring kids, reading to kids, chaperoning field trips. I coached basketball, baseball, soccer. I was intimately involved in all aspects of my kids' lives. I think that my personal lived experience is what differentiates me. It gives me unique insight into the family dynamic that can't be replicated in any other way. And that perspective, I believe, will be invaluable as I rule on family law issues. And I'll just close out by sending my heartfelt thanks, love, and affection to my beautiful, talented, and incredibly patient wife, Kate, with whom I'll, like I said, we're about to celebrate 29 years. I have the life that I have, and I am the man that I am because of her. Thank you.
Well, James Mills and Ben Scales, I think we'd all be well served if either of you ascends to that position. And I wish you the best of luck and thank you for showing up and helping to educate the voters some about what it is that district judges do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to see you, man.
Yeah, likewise.
Thank you all. I would say that this has been a very educational forum. I had no clue about what a district court judge does, and I'm sure a lot of other people don't either. And I think that you all participating in this will help inform people of this very important position in the community.
Thank you.
Good luck to both of you.
Thank you.